Hello everyone, welcome back to Rapid Recaps. In this video, I'm going to recap an action-adventure film called National Treasure from 2004. Spoiler ahead, and before we dive into the storyline, as always, take good care of yourselves. At the beginning of the story, we see young Ben listening to his grandfather, who tell him about a hidden treasure that very few people knew about, and years later, when Ben is grown up he decides to search for that treasure with a few others, having a vague idea of where it might be, from his grandfather's story and a note with a name written on it, that he believed belonged to an old ship. So with the help of his friend Riley who tracked down the ship's location, they went out to find it and Ben figured it had to be hidden under the ice, and after digging for a while they finally discovered the ship. Ben told everyone the good news and thanked Ian, who was their partner and had funded the entire expedition. Although people always thought Ben and his family were crazy for chasing a treasure no one believed was real, but Ben and his team entered the ship and found a room filled with barrels of gunpowder, and after searching more carefully, Ben found a dead body holding a box, inside of which was a pipe that made Ben wonder why someone would die for it until he noticed something written on it and used his own blood to try to read the inscription, which turned out to be another clue, something that made Ian really mad because even after spending so much money they only found another clue. But Ben solved the riddle hidden in the clue and explained it led to an invisible map hidden on the back of one of America's most important documents, the Declaration of Independence, and when Ben said getting that document would be nearly impossible, Ian bluntly said they should just steal it, to which Ben refused and said he would never allow that. So Ian ordered his man Shaw to point a gun at Ben, but Ian also knew that without Ben they couldn't solve the next puzzles, so he threatened to kill Riley instead. And before things got worse Ben lit a flare and warned them that if they didn't calm down he would throw it on the gunpowder, which they didn't believe until he actually threw it. But before it could hit the powder Ian caught it not realizing his hands had some gunpowder on them, causing his hand to catch fire, making him drop the flare, which then ignited the barrels and forced Ian and Shaw to escape as the ship exploded, leaving Ben and Riley behind. But at the last second Ben found a secret door and both of them escaped, and while Ian believed they were dead, Ben and Riley returned to the city and went to the FBI headquarters to warn them that someone was planning to steal the Declaration of Independence, but no one believed them. So they went to the National Archives Museum where the document was kept and tried to explain the hidden map theory to the director Abigail, who didn't believe them and thought they were making it all up. And as Ben and Riley left her office and stared at the document, Ben suddenly said they would have to steal it themselves to keep it from falling into Ian's hands, which Riley said was impossible because of the intense security. So he took Ben to the library and explained how secure the document really was, but Ben said they needed to do something that would force the document to be moved to the preservation room, which had less security, and even though Riley didn't fully trust the plan, he agreed to help. So they started preparing and first needed Abigail's fingerprints and the codes to the preservation room. And to get them Ben sent her a gift coated with a special chemical so that when she pressed a button to put on the coat, it would leave behind her fingerprints, and at first the plan worked exactly how Ben wanted. But on the other side, Ian was also preparing his men to attack the museum during a dance party, and on the day of the event, when the document was moved to the preservation room, Ben entered the building disguised as a staff member without any trouble, changed back into his clothes, and met Abigail who was surprised to see him. And Ben lied that he had made a huge donation to the museum and then stole her champagne glass to get her fingerprints, while at the same time Ian and his men entered the museum through an underground tunnel, and shortly after that Ben reached the preservation room. But just when Riley was monitoring him through cameras, one of Ian's men blocked their access, so Ben decided to take the whole frame containing the document down using the lift, and as soon as he stepped out Ian and his team saw him and were shocked to see he was alive because they thought he was dead. And they opened fire on him but Ben shielded himself using the Declaration of Independence which had bulletproof glass protecting him, and he somehow got into the lift and removed the document from its protective cover, and as he tried to leave he avoided Abigail's attention who had already confirmed that Ben's name wasn't on the guest list, and then Ben hid inside a museum store. But when he tried to leave with the document, the cashier thought he was stealing a replica that looked exactly the same and told him he had to pay or she'd call security. So Ben, short on cash, quietly paid using a card, and just as he stepped outside, Abigail saw him and started following him. And when Ben placed the document in the back of Riley's van, Abigail asked what he was doing and seeing the document in his hands she realized what he had done and started shouting. So Ben silently gave the document back to her, but when she tried to call nearby police, Ian saw her holding the document and sent his men after her. And though Ben tried to save her, Ian's men captured her, and meanwhile the museum guards discovered the document had been stolen, triggering a lockdown and calling in the FBI. And in the van, Ian asked Abigail to hand over the document, but she refused, and suddenly something blocked their van, causing the driver to swerve and everyone inside to fall, giving Abigail the chance to escape though she only managed to hang from the van door, and Ben and Riley followed them to help her, and just when Ian managed to take the document from Abigail, Ben pulled her into Riley's van, saving her, and they took a side road. But when Ian stopped and opened the document, He realized it was fake because Ben had tricked him, and Abigail was angry that Ben had stolen the document and now it was in a criminal's hands. But Ben then pulled out the real one and said he bought a replica in case something went wrong, and that he only stole it to keep it safe from Ian, who was desperate to find the treasure. And when Ben and Riley suggested using chemicals to reveal the clue on the back, Abigail refused, saying it would damage the document. But Riley assured her they wouldn't do anything risky, and the equipment they needed was at Ben's house. But they couldn't go there now since the FBI was likely already there, tracking them using the card Ben used in the museum since he had no cash. And as they pulled over to think, Ben said there were a few important things at his house that would help find the treasure, including letters written by a man named Franklin that were connected to it. And Ben remembered his father had copies of those letters, so he decided to go to him. And though Abigail tried to run away with the document, Ben stopped her, and after a short argument she agreed to come along because now she wanted to see what this treasure really was. And meanwhile FBI agent Sadusky raided Ben's house and found many of Ben's belongings, including the very letters he talked about, and ordered his men to track down Ben's family. And a little while later Ben reached his father Patrick's house, and Patrick said his only dream was that Ben would come visit him, not to talk about treasure, to which Ben replied that he had come to visit him and said, "Dad, we'll spend time together, have fun, just hand over those letters you have and then we'll hang out." Patrick got furious and shouted that Ben never learns from anyone's mistakes, saying he had wasted his entire life chasing this treasure and now Ben was going to ruin his life the same way, claiming there's no treasure and that the whole story was created to mislead enemies of the country, just a made-up myth. But Ben didn't listen, and later when they examined the back of the document, they found special codes that matched the letters they had come to get. And when Ben asked for the letters again, Patrick said he had already donated them to a museum in Philadelphia. So Ben, Abigail, and Riley left right away. And when the FBI reached Patrick's house, they only found Patrick tied to a chair, saying Ben tied him up and also took his car, which led Sadusky to immediately order his team to track the license plate. And on the other side, Ian also realized the clue they found on the ship was connected to those same letters. And after a little research he learned that copies of the letters were in Philadelphia, so he headed there too. And while Riley was trying to decode the clues, a little kid approached him and surprisingly solved the codes easily. But Ian arrived just in time and noticed the boy solving something on paper, so he started following him. But by the time the kid got back, Riley had already figured out the last word and left to find Ben and Abigail so he could show them the decoded message from the letters. Then Ben, Abigail, and Riley began decoding the message and concluded that the clue pointed to the clock outside Independence Hall. And once they figured that out, they headed there alone to find the next clue, while Ian paid the schoolboy and learned what he had told Riley. And he too rushed to Independence Hall, where Ben followed the direction of the clock and found a special mark on a brick wall, removed the brick, and discovered an old pair of glasses, a unique kind of glasses, which he showed to Abigail and Riley. And when Ben wore the glasses and looked at the back of the Declaration of Independence, he saw a special symbol and a message written in a few words nearby. But just then they saw Ian and his men in the area, so they decided to split up, with Abigail and Riley taking the document and trying to slip away. And though they managed to get pretty far from Ian, a bus suddenly came close and almost hit them, creating chaos, during which Ian snatched the declaration from them, and Abigail and Riley immediately called Ben to tell him what had happened. And Ben told them to meet at the car right away. But the FBI had already tracked Ben's car, and as soon as he arrived, they arrested him. Abigail and Riley arrived a little late and quietly slipped away when they saw the FBI, and while in FBI custody, Ben told Agent Sadusky the whole story, how Ian stole the document and how they kept solving one clue after another. And when Sadusky saw the special glasses found with Ben, he realized they might have another use. And just then Ian called Ben's phone and the FBI told him to put it on speaker, where Ian threatened Ben to meet him in a public place with the glasses and warned that if he told the FBI anything, he wouldn't spare his friends. And while the FBI didn't want to miss the chance to catch someone like Ian, they told Ben to go along with the plan and surrounded the meeting spot. But it turned out to be a trap and Ian's men showed up, freeing Ben and taking him away. And on the way Abigail called Ben and revealed that she had made a deal with Ian to get him released in exchange for leading them to the treasure. And when Ian and Ben met again, Ian returned the declaration document and the old pipe they had found on the ship, and then demanded the next clue. And when Ben claimed he had nothing, Ian revealed he had kidnapped Ben's father Patrick, forcing Ben to confess that the mark on the map pointed to a church symbol. So they all headed to that church, and Ben once again used the special glasses on the map and this time discovered a strange new clue, a name that confused everyone until they realized it referred to a burial site beneath the church, after which Ian and his team immediately went underground. And Patrick secretly told Ben they needed to find a way to get rid of Ian because they'd only stay alive as long as they were useful. And then Ian called Ben asking for the next clue, and using the name from the map they broke through a wall and found a tunnel, where Ian ordered Ben to go first, and inside they discovered an ancient chamber that hadn't been opened in years, with wooden stairs and an old lift, and Patrick warned that the stairs were unstable and could collapse since no one had been there in decades. but Ian forced everyone to go down, and as they were descending, several stairs broke and Shaw fell to his death, and the structure began collapsing, so the rest had to jump onto the lift to survive, which took them to an empty room, where Ian angrily demanded to know where the treasure was, and Ben pretended he didn't know, so Ian threatened to leave them there forever. But Patrick suddenly said the next clue was inside the lantern and added that there was a similar lantern in a church in Boston. So maybe the treasure was there. Ian still left them behind, saying that once he found the treasure, he would come back for them, which made Riley panic and say they were all going to die down there. But then Ben and Patrick told Riley and Abigail that they had lied to Ian. The lantern was just a distraction, and after that, they discovered another clue that led them to a new chamber, and when they looked inside, it seemed like someone had been there before them, which made Ben a little sad, and he told Patrick that maybe he had always been right and maybe there really was no treasure, but Patrick encouraged him not to lose hope, saying it just meant someone might have gotten there first, and Ben, refusing to give up, kept searching the walls and eventually found a set of locks, one of which was missing and shaped exactly like the pipe they had found on the ship. So Ben pulled out the pipe, fitted into the lock, and as soon as he turned it, a secret room opened, and behind it was the treasure, a whole chamber filled with it, ancient books, gold coins, jewelry, antiques, everything Patrick and his ancestors had spent their lives searching for, and everyone was overjoyed, and after looking around for a while, they even found a staircase leading out, and Ben was the first to climb up, where he met a man, borrowed his phone, and called Sadusky, who arrived shortly after, and Ben told him everything about the treasure and said he didn't want any reward but had a few conditions. Abigail would face no charges, his family would get full credit for the discovery, Riley would get a share of the treasure, and most importantly, Ben would not go to jail, and Sadusky agreed to all of it and later arrested Ian while he was trying to break into the Boston church, and within days, the treasure was sent to museums around the world, and sometime later, everyone was enjoying life together. But Riley was a bit annoyed and asked Ben why he had turned down the government's reward money, saying he should have at least taken something, and Ben just smiled and didn't answer, while Riley got into his brand new car, showing that he did get a good amount from the government, and after he left, we find out that Ben and Abigail got married and walked into their new home together.